Good afternoon and welcome to today's New York City Council preliminary budget hearing for the Committee on Oversight and Investigation. At this time, we ask that you silence your cell phones and electronic devices to minimize disruptions throughout the hearing. Once again, please silence cell phones and electronic devices to minimize disruptions throughout the hearing. We thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you very much, Sergeant, and good afternoon, and welcome to the fiscal 2004 preliminary budget hearing for the Committee on Oversight and Investigations. I'm Gail Brewer, City Council member and chair of this committee. Today, going to review the Department of Investigation's fiscal 24 budget to understand the changes in the department's budget and how it addresses the needs of New Yorkers to improve the way New York City operates. The Department of Investigation promotes and maintains integrity and efficiency in government operations across the city. DOI's fiscal 24 preliminary budget totals $45.3 million, including $24 million for personal services to support 294 positions and $21.4 million for other than personal services, OTPS. I would like to welcome and thank Commissioner Stauber and her team at DOI for their steadfast work over the year. The Department of Investigation has successfully worked to decrease the backlog of background investigations, perform important investigations, publish detailed reports, and issue policy and procedure recommendations to city agencies, all with a very restricted budget. And I would say, Commissioner, you've done more with less. So I know you could do a lot more with more. Quite a bit you've done with less budget. I look forward to continuing our fruitful conversations with beneficial oversight hearings. We have a lot of work ahead. Holding public officials accountable, ensuring public money is spent lawfully, and building faith in honest government, which is not easy today. I am interested in learning about the Commissioner's plans for the department in the coming year, DOI's role with the city as an oversight department, its revenue generating capacities, as well as how we can work together to improve and baseline, I want to underline that, the department's staffing needs. This plan did not include any new needs and decreased the department's fiscal 24 budget by $2.47 million and 37 positions. This committee is concerned that after multiple years of reductions, the department is not adequately funded. And I would like to discuss the department's concerns of its current budget at this hearing. The committee would also like to discuss other budgetary decisions made by the Adams administration to understand the vision the administration has for the department. As we're finishing all of our first full fiscal year, me as the committee chair, you as the commissioner, I look forward to learning about the successes the department has had over the year and the important role that DOI plays in New York. I also want to make sure that we thank our committee staff for their hard work. Financial analyst Owen Kutowski, Finance Unit Chair Jack Story, Senior Counsel CJ Murray, Policy Analyst Alex Yablon, and my Chief of Staff Shula Puder, as well as Communications Director Sam Goldsmith, and the amazing Oversight and Investigations Division staff. So now I'd like to welcome you and thank Commissioner Stauber, the department's investigators, background investigators, and inspectors general for the work they do. I'm looking forward to hearing from the commissioner. And first, I believe that CJ Murray will swear you in. And thank you so much. All yours.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Stauber, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? I do. Thank you. You may begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Brewer and members of the Committee on Oversight and Investigations for holding today's hearing on DOI's fiscal 2024 preliminary budget and for inviting me to testify. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about DOI's work over the past year and how I plan to ensure that we can continue to effectively fulfill our mission in the future. Over the past year, I have worked with my executive team to chart a clear path forward for DOI as we, like other city agencies, navigate fiscal and staffing challenges. My goal is to ensure that we continue to conduct investigations and make recommendations that have a meaningful impact, furthering transparency, improving city government, and ensuring that the city's most vulnerable are well and equitably served by city agencies. These principles are the foundation of DOI's work and are as important today as they were 150 years ago when DOI was established. While our staffing and budgetary realities are complex and challenging, we have used them as an opportunity to think creatively about our work and to make our processes more efficient. At each investigative stage, from intake onward, my goal is to focus DOI's resources on the most significant matters where we anticipate either a criminal referral or significant policy and procedural recommendations, and to take targeted investigative steps as efficiently as possible so that we can promptly complete our investigations and issue any recommendations. To accomplish this, let me take you through a number of steps we've undertaken this past year. Restructured our case review process to facilitate even closer oversight of ongoing investigations by our inspectors general and executive team. Deployed our data analytics unit to more quickly assess the extent of potential misconduct with a focus on significant monetary loss and to proactively identify potential red flags for further investigation. Refocus the inspectors general and their teams on the writing of public reports and streamlining that process, and we are on track to issue more reports this year. Implemented an in-house investigative officer training academy to train junior investigators at the beginning of their tenure to ensure consistent, excellent work product agency-wide. Improved our recruitment efforts by cementing our relationships at local law schools and area colleges and universities, expanding our participation in career fairs, and increasing the range of online recruiting platforms where we post positions, among other efforts. Strengthened retention by implementing a promotional structure that provides investigators with advancement opportunities, and a mentorship program that assigns newly hired investigator mentees to veteran investigator mentors. Maintained a robust year-round intern program and participated in the Civil Service Pathways Fellowship Program and the Mayor's new Legal Fellows Program. Deepened our relationship with prosecutors and law enforcement partners, and fostered even more solid relationships and better communication with city agencies and City Hall because their leadership plays a critical role in our anti-corruption mission. Today, I will discuss DOI's budget and staffing numbers, our work this past year, and my vision for the future. DOI's fiscal year 2024 preliminary budget is $45.27 million, $23.87 million for personal services, and $21.4 million for other than personal services. DOI anticipates receiving an additional $1.6 million in intra-city funds from other agencies that support a portion of our staffing at the start of fiscal 2024. The total fiscal 2024 budget will support 465 employees, 315 funded by DOI's budget, and the remainder through memoranda of understanding arrangements with other city agencies and public authorities, including the New York City Housing Authority and New York City Health and Hospitals. The fiscal 2024 budget is approximately 10% less than our current fiscal 2023 budget. It is important to note that in the past 2 fiscal years, 86 budgeted positions have been cut from DOI's budget, about 21% of our staff, resulting in over $7 million in cost savings for the city. The recent 50% vacancy reduction in the January 2023 program to eliminate the gap hit DOI particularly hard because we already had a high vacancy rate due to difficulties in hiring and retaining staff over the past several years. DOI is staff-driven, as you know, not program-driven, so these cuts principally impact our headcount. I am extremely grateful for the Council's support last year for DOI to receive an additional 18 positions that were included in DOI's adopted budget for fiscal 2023. As you also know, that funding unfortunately was not baselined and was for fiscal year 2023 only. Therefore, we were not able to hire for those positions. DOI's need for that investigator headcount remains, as I will discuss in a moment. Now let me speak a bit about the work we've done over the past year. It has been an incredibly rewarding experience for me to serve as commissioner during this period. I am grateful for the opportunity to work with DOI's committed, talented and rigorous staff every day. They are the true heart of this agency, and the range of oversight work that they do is astounding, pursuing corruption, fraud, waste, and a range of other misconduct. They build cases that lead to criminal prosecutions, as well as disciplinary and administrative action, and they develop policy and procedural recommendations for reform, as well as teaching our fellow city employees about their important role in DOI's anti-corruption work. In 2022, DOI conducted an array of investigations with our prosecuting and law enforcement partners and with the cooperation of many city agencies. Let me tell you about just some of that work. The city's jails are and have been a key focus for DOI. Our work to identify and impede the flow of contraband, which destabilizes the environment and jeopardizes the lives of officers and persons in custody, led to convictions of 2 city corrections officers who accepted bribes in exchange for smuggling cell phones and narcotics to members of the Bloods gang incarcerated on Rikers Island. Another DOI investigation led to charges against a correction captain and 3 correction officers for reckless endangerment in connection with an inmate's 2019 suicide attempt. Another investigation resulted in federal fraud charges against 3 correction officers for lying to the Department of Correction in order to take over a year of sick leave amid the staffing crisis on Rikers Island. And DOI's work with our prosecuting partners and with the Department of Correction to expose and eradicate wrongdoing that undermines safety in our city jails is very much ongoing. DOI also investigates potential construction-related fatalities that involve potential criminal conduct. In 2022, our investigations led to a Flatbush landlord's conviction and 6-month jail sentence in connection with the death of a tenant in a fire at an illegally subdivided Brooklyn apartment building. Another investigation resulted in charges against a construction company and its owner for allegedly causing the death of a 5-year-old girl struck by portions of a wall constructed in violation of the city building code. And another investigation resulted in charges against a Brooklyn scaffolding company and its foreperson for reckless endangerment and criminal mischief in a scaffolding collapse that left a woman seriously injured. DOI also protects the wages of workers on city projects and assists in returning stolen wages to those workers. One wage theft investigation resulted in charges against a Long Island man who allegedly stole thousands of dollars in a kickback scheme victimizing workers on a school construction authority project in Queens. Another resulted in charges against an electrical company for allegedly stealing $1.7 million in worker wages on school and NYCHA projects. In one prevailing wage case, our investigation resulted in the return of $900,000 to 200 NYCHA construction workers denied the prevailing wage rate by an electrical contractor. Other criminal investigations led to charges involving theft from the city's pension fund and a $5.4 million scheme to defraud a city program for homeless veterans. DOI's investigations lead to impactful results, deterring future wrongdoing and returning funds to the city. This year, for example, a former CEO of a city-funded nonprofit was convicted of a bribery and kickback conspiracy involving contractors of his nonprofit and received a 27-month federal prison sentence. 4 defendants pled guilty to a $400,000 fraud involving the COVID-19 hotel room isolation program. One New Jersey man pled guilty to a scheme to defraud the city during the pandemic of tens of millions of dollars. And a city parks and recreation contractor pled guilty to a $1 million insurance fraud and is now required to pay $1.2 million in restitution and is barred from certain city contracts. These are some of the highlights of our publicly announced investigations, providing insight into a slice of the work that DOI does. In 2022, DOI had an active investigative docket of more than 1,500 cases. We reached nearly 47,000 city employees through our corruption prevention module, webinars, and in-person lectures, and we collected nearly $2 million for the city as a result of our investigations. We continue to shrink the backlog of background investigations, closing 928 more investigations this past year. Currently, DOI has 795 remaining background investigations, a sharp decrease from the 2019 high of 6,500, and our work to close those investigations continues. Let's turn now to the outlook moving forward. Our active headcount was 546 in fiscal 2020, and today it is 412. Decreases in headcount are not the only challenge. DOI has just over 60 vacant positions as we sit here today. These positions include investigators, auditors, and attorneys, critical staff for the work that we do. We are actively recruiting to fill these vacancies through our ramped-up recruitment efforts, but even when we fill them, we will have 84 fewer people working at DOI than we had 4 years ago, which, given our size, has an undeniable impact. To address this issue, we are, as I said initially, seeking to be more targeted and efficient, to use our investigative resources as effectively as possible, and to prioritize matters of greatest impact. However, our workload remains steady, with many key indicators in calendar year 2022 staying level or increasing, such as complaints made to DOI, our active investigative docket, and the number of cases opened and closed. I believe that to fully fulfill our mission and to operationalize certain measures intended to promote efficiency, DOI will need more staff in our investigative squads and in other areas across the agency. Our plan calls for 30 additional baseline headcount, a total cost of $1.7 million. This includes hiring personnel to handle certain administrative tasks so that our investigators who currently do that work can focus more fully on their investigations. To do so, DOI proposes to expand our centralized complaint intake unit, adding 5 new administrative staff members dedicated to receiving and documenting complaints. Currently, our investigators spend up to 20% of their time each year on complaint intake tasks, time better directed to moving their investigations forward. Our plan also calls for hiring 4 data entry clerks to handle the input of extensive investigative data into DOI systems. This work is currently handled by our data analysts, investigators, and auditors, detracting from the time spent on analytical investigative work. These hires will benefit DOI's data analytics unit in particular. That unit was established in fiscal year 2021 and supports the squad's proactive and other investigations by doing deep dives into various data sources, mapping information, and conducting analysis to identify corruption-related red flags and potential patterns of misconduct. To give just one example, the unit is involved in our in-depth examination of city-funded provider contracts at the Department of Homeless Services. Another component of our plan is to hire 20 additional staff to support our investigations, principally confidential investigators, but also auditors, lawyers, and others with specialized expertise. We will deploy these new staff across our squads, with 6 going to Squad 10, which oversees the 4 agencies that handle some of the city's largest capital projects: the Departments of Transportation, Environmental Protection, Design and Construction, and Parks and Recreation. The vast amount of capital projects these agencies manage, collectively more than $6.76 billion, was the reason DOI established Squad 10 to oversee this group of agencies. That squad has not been fully staffed to date, which has hampered its ability to strategically establish its docket. The Council recognized the importance of this work last year and advocated for positions to be used in part to fully staff this unit. However, as I mentioned earlier, because these positions were not baselined, DOI ultimately could not fill them. 2 of the 20 investigators would be dedicated to DOI's Vendor Integrity Unit that oversees the agency's Integrity Monitor program. This program enables the city to enter into or continue contracts with companies that might otherwise be precluded from doing business with the city because of integrity issues, and also proactively monitors large-scale city capital projects. There are currently 10 monitorships in place, an increase from prior years, and we anticipate at least 3 more coming online in the next year, including a monitor for the borough-based jails program. While human capital is the lifeblood of our agency, our investigators' work is supported by critical technological infrastructure. This year, DOI plans to purchase a new case management system and is requesting $700,000 in capital funding to do so. Our current system, which is over a decade old, lacks key functionalities, including most readily accessible records and case files, streamlined export capability for production of discovery, and the ability to quickly and easily generate statistical and other information. We are thankful to OMB for considering these requests, and we look forward to continuing our productive conversations with them about our needs. In conclusion, DOI is proud to protect the city's funding and services and the city's dedicated workforce from those corrupt actors who would deplete city resources and unfairly undermine the reputation of all city workers. I thank you for your support of our mission and our staff, and for considering our plans to assure that DOI can continue to fulfill that mission as we embark on our next 150 years. Thank you for your time, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. I've been joined by Councilmember Ayala, Councilmember Williams, and on Zoom, Councilmember Yeager. And I hope that my colleagues will jump in, because I don't need to ask all these questions. One thing that comes to mind, and Councilmember Ayala and I are always on the, I would say to the credit of the administration, talking about the asylum issues. And the contracts are just mind-blowing in terms of the number. So I think you mentioned this because you talked about DHS. But right now, how do you handle health and hospitals and DHS in terms of the monitoring? Because I assume there are an awful lot of contracts that are somewhat new to those two agencies. So is it a special focus? Is that a reason why you might need more staffing? Obviously, we've got a lot of asylum. Councilmember Ayala, 50,000, I would have something like that.
So we are currently considering, sort of as we speak, how we can meaningfully participate in these contracts that, as you say, are already ongoing and assist the city in ensuring that oversight is robust. To the extent that and those conversations are ongoing, to the extent that a monitor was appointed to supervise some or all of that effort, just for example, we would supervise that monitor, and so that would involve a dedication of staffing from our vendor integrity unit. And as I mentioned, we are requesting additional staffing for that unit. So our work in that area is very much sort of in progress, and I think it is an area where if there is expanded oversight, we would have a role to play, and the staffing that we're discussing today would be used for that purpose.
Okay. In terms of the marshals always scare me because they do evict people, and I understand that's what their job is. Mm-hmm. But I noticed in the material leading up today, obviously during the pandemic, they weren't as busy, mm-hmm. but now they are collecting more money. It's nice from the revenue perspective, but it gives me pause in terms of what they're actually doing. So my question is, what is driving the anticipated increase in revenue? Is it evictions? We're all concerned about not enough attorneys in the housing court. We're concerned that the courts aren't open. We have so many concerns that lead up to people getting evicted. So I'm just wondering, what's the current, why are they able to have more revenue now, and is it because of the evictions? And is there something that we should be doing to try to prevent that, even though it's a revenue generator? So,
as you know, Chair Brewer, the marshals operate independently. Yes. DOI does have oversight over the marshals in a programmatic sense, and there are a number of measures in place to assure that when evictions do take place, if there are issues with respect to, let's say, the elderly or people who are unable to find other locations in which they can reside, or if there are people even in the current environment who have COVID and issues relating to COVID, there are still measures in place to prevent those evictions. So I can't speak specifically to revenue numbers, but what I can say is this is an area where we have oversight, and there are a number of measures in place that will continue even after COVID to ensure that evictions are done properly and in accordance with the law.
Okay, because obviously you have oversight over them and can give them directions, even though that might still be an independent body. All right, my understanding is they're making 4 times the actual amount that they did in the past for the city, which is good, mm-hmm. but it's of concern to those of us who worry about evictions. So I want to make that too. I also want to talk about the background investigations. That's something that the OMB commissioner talked endlessly, and we all are, about getting people hired. And obviously this is part of the process, because even today the immigration commissioner was saying how hard it is to get people hired. I think we all have the same problem. I could go on and on about why that is, but one of them is, of course, streamlining the background investigation process. So if you could talk a little bit more about it, what the fee changes are, if that's, if there are changes that you'd like to see, obviously more staff would help, et cetera. Even though you've done a great job, I'm sure there's room for improvement.
Yeah, well, so I want to say first that in terms of the backlog, as I said, those numbers have gone down, are continuing to go down. So I think we are now processing background investigations in, sort of a pace. So I don't think that there are, the delays that led to the backlog are not continuing. As I think we've explained before, we separated the backlogged investigations from ongoing new background investigations so that we could attack the backlog without increasing delays in the current incoming background investigations. And so we are now moving those forward. One of our goals, and this is certainly not a completed process, is to consider whether there are areas that we could streamline in the background investigation process, and we're certainly open to doing that, while maintaining the protective and significant function that the backgrounding process serves. It is also the case that we are really just one component of the hiring process. So I don't think it would be accurate to suggest that we are driving delays in city hiring. That does not mean that our process couldn't be more efficient, and we are thinking about ways that we could improve sort of the service that we provide to other city agencies and to incoming city employees through streamlining that process.
Okay. I think it's around 1,000 now, and in the previous era, it was 6,500, so that's a huge improvement.
And it was in part, the council's support of our request for staffing that enabled us to bring that backlog down.
Okay. And then, but we assume that with more hires, it could go up. Who knows? But I wanted to know, in terms of revenue, how does that impact the revenue? Because people pay, obviously, to be able to be an employee of the city of New York. So how is the revenue generated, and how is that going for the backlog?
I have to say, I would have to get back to you on the specifics of that. There are certain fees that are paid, certainly in connection with things like fingerprinting to become a city employee, and I know I just can't give you the exact revenue numbers with respect to the backgrounds, but I think those would really be tied to, the number of folks who are onboarded at any one time. So an increase in vacancies would be reflected in a decrease in that revenue stream.
Okay, do you foresee a time when there would not be a backlog, even 1,000, or is that low enough so it's not a concern?
I foresee a time when we will decrease to zero the backlog of old investigations. There will always be some time period, and obviously depending on the hire, we can make efforts to expedite certain backgrounds. There will always be some period of time, that it will take a few months, et cetera, to do a background investigation, but I do expect that we will reduce the backlog of old investigations to zero.
Okay. DOI created the Integrity Monitor Program to work with companies that may not be able to do business with the city due to integrity issues. Under the program, the companies can be awarded contracts if they agree to an outside independent monitor. So I wanted to know, how has this mission been accomplished? What are the goals? And what has been the progress with this program?
So the goal of this program, which has been established for some time, is to allow city agencies that for a variety of different reasons need to continue a contractual relationship with a vendor that has integrity issues to do so while assuring that that vendor, while it is serving as a city contractor, acts, appropriately with integrity, and that the issues that the vendor has had in the past don't affect its performance of the contract, its management of funds, and most importantly, that the city is protected from any, fraud or misconduct by that vendor. The program requires the vendor itself to pay the cost of the monitor, so the city does not bear that expense. And there are a variety of reasons why the city might want to continue working with a vendor that has integrity issues, including, for example, there are certain types of services that only certain vendors are capable of providing, or are capable of providing on the particular scale that's needed. It might also be the case that the agency is already mid-contract with that vendor, And so to terminate the contract and hire another vendor not only would be more expensive, but would also result in delays. Typically, that is the decision that the agency makes. Does the agency want to continue this contractual relationship? We will then discuss with the agency how we can structure the monitorship to give the city as much protection as possible based on the historical concerns of the vendor's conduct. There are circumstances where that requires a certification from the vendor with minimal monitoring, but the most sort of robust program is the appointment of an outside monitor that DOI selects and monitors its work so that we can be aware of any issues, paid for by the vendor. And that monitor doesn't just look at what is happening, let's say, with the accounts or invoices on an ongoing basis. The monitor, with DOI's oversight, can require principals of the company to be removed if they have integrity issues, so can require new leadership, can require the imposition of a compliance program, and other types of auditing and quality assurance to ensure good behavior going forward.
So how many do you have in this situation now? I know you mentioned one of the scoundrels, that's Schumer's word, he loves the word scoundrel. One of the scoundrels that had been part of a nonprofit, and you said that, you know, his issues had been addressed, but it sounded to me like he still had other contracts that had to be ongoing. So how many of these independent monitors do you have now?
We currently have 10 monitorships. 8 of those are the monitorships paid for by the vendors, and 2 of those are monitorships for the larger scale capital projects that are paid for by the city.
Okay. And do these, I call them scoundrels, do these scoundrels manage to actually come up with the money, either for the monitors, I would assume, otherwise they wouldn't have contracts, but also those scoundrels that are not, just have to pay their fees? Do you, to the best of your knowledge, do they pay up some, you know?
These vendors do, yes. The situation would be more challenging if you were talking about nonprofits. These are for-profit entities that have substantial contracts with the city and also have revenue streams from elsewhere. So yes, they do pay and the program does work. And of course, if the vendor, and I don't think I've personally seen this example, if the vendor was unwilling to agree to a monitor, then the city could, and I expect would, terminate the contract. Because part of the agency's determination that the vendor is responsible and can continue to work is that they will be subject to a monitorship.
So these are all the for-profits, I didn't realize that, okay.
That's my understanding, yes.
I want to welcome Council Member Krishnan. Are there questions that my colleagues have? Because I like to ask you so that it's not just me talking. And Councilmember Williams, you have a question? I could go on, so go ahead.
I know, there's a lot of questions here. I'll check in with you about which questions you want to ask. So I'll just segue from the questions and ask about the NYPD Inspector General. I don't think you talked about it in your testimony. Is that position still vacant?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said, I don't think you talked about it in your testimony. Is that position still vacant?
Yes, the position of the Inspector General for the PD is still vacant. We have an excellent acting Inspector General who's been in that role now for over a year. And as we continue our active efforts, and we do have some strong candidates that we've identified, but that process is still ongoing. But as we continue to focus our efforts on finding the right permanent person, we are continuing, our work with that group under the current excellent leadership that we have. That group issued 2 reports this year, and we anticipate additional reports in the coming year.
Okay. Would you say like that also gets wrapped into, I know you said there was like over, I kind of was like shocked to read it, over 50% vacancy reduction in the January 2023 PEGs. So is that included in it, or you already have the line item to hire that person? Is not subject to the PEG, right?
So the 50% vacancy reduction, that's the cut of the existing vacant positions as of, I believe it was the end of October of last year. We are still allocating, meaning determining where we will find those positions right across the agency. But we're certainly the Inspector General position is one that we're continuing to look for. And at the moment, I can tell you, so I can't tell you exactly where all those vacancies will fall, I can tell you that we have 17 positions currently filled in the Inspector General unit, and we are actively recruiting now to get that number up to 22.
Okay, and then in your testimony, you said 18 positions, thanks to us, you received, but because it wasn't baseline, were you saying you weren't able to hire them? So it was like, oh, you got the money, and then you actually weren't able to hire them.
Right, well, when
Really pissed me off.
they're
I
not,
just wanted to like clarify what I'm seeing here.
You got the
They're
money,
not-
and then OMB said they couldn't hire you. You have no idea. Go ahead.
well, just to be clear, when they're not baselined, they're only for
Right,
that
for that
budgetary year. So we
right.
can't really recruit people where we don't have assurance that
The money will be there.
that money will be there.
Okay.
That being said, we have a number of outstanding vacancies anyway, so.
So, given the pegs and like the current status of the agency, because I recognize that you said it was a challenge before with hiring, do you think you have the capacity to fulfill your obligations as a whole?
You know, I do, and I think we're doing that. I certainly don't think there's work that we're not doing or important investigations that we're not pursuing. I think that in certain areas, I think about report writing in particular, the pace of our work is slower than I think we would like it to be, and that's in part because that's particularly time-consuming work, and when you have folks who are managing, multiple matters at one time, those may take a little bit longer. Overall, there may be, a slower pace of work, and we are, like I said, trying to make good and efficient choices about how we pursue investigations. So we're doing everything we can with what we have. I certainly think the proposals that we've made to, allow our investigators to focus on their work and to supplement our investigative staff will enable us, to do our work even better and even faster than we can currently do it.
Okay, I just have one more question, and it's sort of in relations to the fact that you're an independent entity, and as I was like listening to you and also like rereading some of your testimony, it's tough to sort of fulfill the obligation. So do you have any suggestions on how we could potentially change the structure and mission? Of abuse idea we would like to see change from the council. So like any suggestions on structure and mission of combating fraud, waste, and abuse. Do you have any suggestions on how we could potentially change that to make it better for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, as I said, staffing has been one of our big challenges and has caused us to, like I said, try to think really hard about how we do our work. I think in terms of maintaining our independence, that is something that we've done successfully all these years and continue to do, and I certainly don't think the staffing issues limit our ability to work, in a fully independent way, and it's important that we do that. But I do think staffing, additional staffing would be a very helpful add to our current situation.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioner. Thank you so much for your testimony today, and thank you, Chair Brewer, for holding this important hearing. I had a few questions on a few different topics. Just to begin with, one of the things that I noted in your summary in your testimony and in the summary of work that you've done involved going after things like, wage theft, unscrupulous contractors, and one area that's on my mind is I noticed that a case here that you had worked on was about a landlord that had engaged in criminal behavior that resulted in the death of a tenant for illegal subdivision. I'm wondering what consideration DOI has given to really expanding its focus in that area. There are many instances of landlords' harassment of tenants. I've personally represented many tenants and tenant associations in those situations. Landlords destroying buildings, cutting gas, heat, hot water, and starting fires to vacate entire rent-stabilized buildings of tenants. And the biggest challenge that I've often, and my former colleagues in legal services have also faced too, is getting law enforcement in any capacity to take this seriously. It's often seen as a housing matter. It's referred to housing court. That's fundamentally not what it is. These are, it's criminal behavior and harassment by landlords, but it never gets treated that way. And so I'm just wondering, given the attention that you're paying to this area, what work can be done to really expand DOI's focus here too?
This is an area that we're very interested in. As I'm sure you know, there is a relatively recent, statute that criminalizes just this conduct. You have to establish that the landlord acted with intent to basically harass the tenant out of the property. But one of our Inspector General squads that focuses on housing issues is very interested in this area. This has also been a focus for at least the Manhattan DA's office and maybe other DA's offices. And so we are actively working in this area, and I think that the new statute provides an opportunity to explore criminal remedies more readily for this kind of conduct. There's significant proof barriers to meet, and how those are going to be established has yet to really play out in court. But I agree with you that it's an important area, and it certainly is one that we are focused on.
Yeah, I would just urge you all to find ways to really creatively think about this, because this is one of the most pressing housing issues in our city now, and it'll never be. The landlords will say it behind closed doors, those that engage in this kind of utterly egregious activity. But, the straight line of saying there'll be proof of intent of them saying, I'm going to destroy this building and cut off services, that happens, no doubt. But oftentimes, it'll be a situation where no one, it's very obvious when services go off. And it's because of construction work, and so it'll be construction as harassment, and all of a sudden, there'll be a situation where it's like, oh, whoops, the power, the water went out, and that's it, and it stays that way for days. So, even under the statutes and intent, I just, urge you to all think of really creative ways to bring these enforcement proceedings, because there's a lot of value in even just bringing them to, and really, holding criminal landlords accountable for criminal behavior. I did also want to ask about the report that DOI was going to put out, and we've seen, reports about it too, as far as the, I think you had stated before to City Council in 2022 that the NYPD IG's report on the NYPD's criminal gang database or criminal group database would be released. The gang database report has yet to be released. When will it be released, and what was the reason for the delays?
So when I was here last year, and it may not have been at budget testimony, but maybe shortly thereafter, at that point I hoped and projected that we would issue the report by the end of the year. Obviously, we did not make that deadline, and I'm hesitant to give you a specific date, in part for that reason. What I can tell you is we have made enormous progress, are in a very different stage of readiness with that report than we were when I was last here. And it is my expectation that it is going to be coming out in the very near future. I just don't want to give you a specific date, because for various reasons these dates can be hard to pin down. And the additional time that was taken, I mentioned at prior testimony and today, the work we've done to sort of streamline the reporting process to ensure that the work product we're doing is thorough and accurate. And that is part of what has taken some additional time. I had to sort of work on those things during the past year, and I think those efforts are going to bear fruit this year. It is also the case that as folks leave units and leave DOI and work has to be transitioned to other folks, there is a delay inherent in that process. And as I said, when we do have a smaller number of people trying to accomplish the same amount of work, things can take more time. But that report has been a top priority. We are very far along, and I would expect that we would be issuing it, like I said, in the near future.
Chair, if you don't mind, I just have a couple more questions. Thank you. And so just on that note, and thank you for the testimony too, without being pinned down to an exact date, are we talking about a 3-month timeline, a 6-month timeline? There's obviously a lot of people and organizations who are very eager, and council members who are eager to see the report too.
I will say that I would hope and I would expect that we would be well within 3 months.
Great. Okay. Look forward to seeing it soon. Also, I think in your testimony before too last year to the council, you had testified that there were a number of other reports as well that you were reviewing that were in their draft stage, and just wanted to get a sense of what those reports were and when we can expect them to be coming out as well.
Yes. Well, as I probably said then, I can't get into the specifics about reports that we are working on. There are some that we have been able to speak about publicly the report involving, for example, the DHS shelter service providers, where we've been working with a monitor. That was something that was established under the past administration. That's a report that we hope to issue this year. And there are other matters that we've spoken publicly about, but I can't generally sort of give you a list of all of the reports that we're looking at, in part because obviously as we undertake investigations, we determine to some extent in real time what reports we're going to issue and what things are not going to ultimately be public reports. But both from the PDIG squad and from the other squads, we expect to issue a number of additional reports this year.
Okay. And last question, you may have already answered this, but just to check again too, how much of DOI's upcoming budget is going to be earmarked for NYPD-IG staffing?
I think this is a line item actually in the OMB budget, but what I said was we have 17 positions currently filled, and we are actively recruiting to bring us up to 22. For those 7 additional positions, and that's a total of $1.8 million.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
I think one of the concerns about this, I know that acting interim IG Barrett is doing a good job, and I believe that the position has been downgraded. The job posting calls for 4 years of postgraduate experience, which is a lot less than previous IGs. And I know you were trying to get one person who didn't work out. So my question is, I know you mentioned this earlier, but where exactly are you in the search? Is it possible to find the right person for this job, and what can we expect in the future?
So I believe it is possible because there have been, strong candidates that we are speaking to. There are strong candidates that we're speaking to. I think everyone that I'm aware of that we've considered has vastly more than the 4 minimum years of experience, and we're looking for someone who has managerial experience, someone who has supervised other folks. Among the qualifications we're looking for potentially are someone who has prosecutorial experience, which gives you sort of case-building, fact-finding experience, but we're open to other types of experience as well. When we initially posted the position last year, it had a lower salary that actually, as I think I probably explained, maybe it was at budget testimony, was actually consistent with the salaries that we pay our inspectors general. And although this is an important position, all of our inspector generals have significant oversight responsibilities for very important agencies within the city. However, after the challenges that we had last year that you alluded to with the candidate that we had expected to hire, we actually raised the posted salary range, so it is now, as posted, $170,000 to $200,000. So it is actually quite a bit above the salaries that we for our other inspectors general, and approximates, I think, when the former IG left. After a number of years, he was earning more than that, but we are now back in the salary range that was the original salary for that position, when the unit was originally created. So to the extent that there was a perception that we had downgraded it when we posted it early last year, we have changed the posting to address those issues.
Okay. Just talking about salaries and jobs. So my understanding was that because of the lack of baseline last year, we were not able to hire. I think it was 18 positions. So now, money hopefully is forthcoming, because I have been a pain in the neck in the Daily News to the commissioner and every place else I can think of, talking about your need for staff. When you get this funding, I have been told it would be baselined if you get it. Is that also your understanding? Because what's the point of getting more money that's not baseline?
Well, certainly that's our ask, and we appreciate that. And are grateful for your support for that ask. It is hard for me to envision how we could hire someone without a commitment that we have the funding to pay them for more than 1 year.
Okay. And of your positions, some are, because DC 37 is obviously part of a bargaining contract. Good that they signed a new contract. When we ask about will they be able to be hybrid, answer, June. We'll have a committee that will decide between now and June. That's the answer I got. So now the question to you is, hopefully you could hire even sooner if you have some non-DC 37, I didn't get an answer, who could perhaps be hybrid able to maybe hire faster? Is that something that is, I don't know the DC 37 breakdown in your office. Do you know what it is?
Not off the top of my head, no, but what I can say is that
June is far away in my book.
our hiring, we think, would be considerably easier if we could offer even a moderate remote hybrid option.
Have I not been saying this for a year?
of some
council
kind.
members? Thank you.
So, and we are
Since
certainly,
January of 2022.
we are certainly equipped to have, we're certainly equipped to have staff work remotely. We had the vast majority of our staff work remotely during the pandemic. Obviously, that was a challenging time, but their ability to do their investigations really continued unabated. And certainly remote work, we don't view as posing an issue to our ability to be productive and to work collaboratively as a team and as an agency.
The other issue the mayor always said was, if you are a revenue-generating agency, we're not going to, we're going to let you hire whatever you want. So, of course, that hasn't been happening. But do you have an estimate of the amount of money that you saved the city by preventing fraud and waste last year? Because to me, that would be considered a revenue-generating. Not to say that you don't always, often have revenue-generating, but do you have some sense of how much you might have saved the city?
Well, in terms of hard numbers, we have a $2 million recovery from last year, but of course, I think the savings that we bring is in part through the deterrent effect of knowing that we are here sort of conducting robust investigations with our eyes on procedures, and that's the kind of deterrent effect that works on an individual level. I think the other intangible that may be hard to quantify is the value of the policy and procedural recommendations that we make, which often are designed to ensure that the right policies and procedures are in place to avoid waste, to ensure appropriate vetting of payments and the like. So I think although it may be hard to quantify, there are multiple ways that our work saves the city money and improves city processes beyond simply the hard amount of recoveries on an annual basis.
Do you have a question? Yeah. Go ahead, Councilmember Ayala.
Suggesting this is so aggressive. I don't know who was here before me. Good afternoon. Has the agency, I mean, because this is a budget, you know, we're trying to, and I just want to say that you have the biggest cheerleader and Councilmember Brewer. She drives us all insane because we need to get more money to the DOI, and we all agree. We all agree, but you couldn't have a better champion than
And we
you have in her.
appreciate that very much.
She's really relentless, believe me. I'll record her one day so that you can see.
And I'm sorry, it's driving all of you insane.
But I'm curious about two things. One, has the agency, the agency seen an increase in overtime, considering, you know, just to make up for the fact that you're so short-staffed?
You know, I can tell you what our overtime numbers are for the past year. We have not seen a dramatic increase in overtime. Last year, our overtime spend was $360,000. Year to date for fiscal year 23, it's $180,000, and we're actually projecting, therefore, $280,000 by the end of this year. So we are not seeing, you know, a spike in overtime, and that's certainly well within, I believe, what we've had in past years.
Okay, so as you tighten your fiscal belt, what gets sacrificed?
Well, you know, this is, I think certainly there is, like I said, no area where we say, like, let's not open that, we just don't have time for that. That's really not how we work. Every complaint comes in, it gets evaluated on its own merits, and we take the steps that we think are necessary. I think to some extent, certain things may take longer. Like I said, I think if we had more staffing, would we be able to issue more reports on a more frequent basis? You know, I can see sort of in real time that obviously when fewer people are trying to do the same amount of work, you know, it just takes more time for that work to be done, which I think is not surprising. But I certainly can't say that we've sacrificed any particular area of inquiry. We have really tried, and I think, you know, since it's our job to try to make everyone else more efficient, we've tried to sort of turn that lens inward and look at ways where we could be more efficient, and I do think that has helped us manage in the current environment. And that's things as simple as, you know, really being thoughtful about the investigative steps we take, and first taking steps that might resolve a matter more efficiently. And if those then lead to more investigating, we'll do that, as opposed to starting with a more time-consuming approach, right? It's things like that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but what is the average number of complaints that you received last year?
So our complaints are relatively steady. So in fiscal year '22, basically if we move up from 20, we received just over 12,000 in fiscal year '20. There was a dip in fiscal year '21, but just down to 11,500 or so, back up into 12,000 last fiscal year. And this fiscal year, we look roughly on track to be the same as last based on the first 4 months of fiscal year '23. And then the other number just to think about is active investigations, right? Because not every complaint is necessarily meritorious and leads to an active investigation. So to give you those numbers, we had 1,784 active investigations in '20, 1,600 and change in '21, 1,500 in '23, and this year we are so far a little lower. Actually a little higher than we were in '22. So we're on pace, in terms of opening investigations with where we were last year, and that's when I say, given that these indicators remain the same, we would obviously appreciate having, some additional staffing, particularly on the investigative side, but of course, the mission of the agency as a whole, is to move the investigative work forward, and our operations folks are important, and our timekeeping and payroll folks are important. Everybody is really contributing to that effort.
And have we seen an increase in complaints coming from a specific agency or sector?
Not that I know of as I sit here, but I am sure we can get that breakdown and I can bring that back to you. So but I can't tell you that just sitting here today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and we will continue to fight the fight for you to have those funds baselined. I know that Gail will get it done.
And we
We're
very
just
much
back up.
appreciate your support.
We're back up.
With everybody's help. Councilmember Joseph, Councilmember Velasquez, do you have questions? No? Okay. I have a question just in terms of the 12,000 complaints, whatever the number is. How do you decide which one moves to the next step? And as commissioner, have you made any changes in that process?
So it is an entirely fact-specific determination that is really made by the complaint unit. Intakes the complaints, but then they are sort of dispositioned to the relevant squads, and the squads are arranged by the agencies they cover. And then within the squads, a determination is made about the nature of the complaint, its merit, can it be investigated? Obviously, we get certain complaints that really just are not in the wheelhouse of what we focus on, that have more to do with an individual issue with receiving services, just for example. But it's really made on a case-by-case basis. What we have tried to do is to ensure that, and this is very agency dependent, certain agencies have certain disciplinary processes of their own, for example, and there's certain types of complaints that an agency might be, let's say, a relatively minor personnel matter, for example. That might come to us because agencies generally are mindful that if there's any issue that could be, a corruption problem or misconduct problem, they should refer it to us. If we really think it's something very straightforward that the agency could manage on its own, and from our view it's not part of a pattern, it doesn't reflect a broader concern, then we are mindful to think about what can be managed by the agency and what is appropriately managed by us. But other than making sure that folks are sensitized to that thought process, we really are not dictating in any sort of top-down way how complaints should be dispositioned, because we want the IGs with the agency-specific expertise to be looking at each one and making a judgment on each one based on, the nature of the complaint, the issue it raises, and again, some things, given, depending on the information we're given, are more subject to investigation than others.
And I should know this, but particularly HPD, because just like my colleague stated, we're very concerned about the housing issues. So are all of the IGs in full not acting? Are they all fully assigned?
The only acting inspector general position that we have is the NYPD.
Right, okay, that's what I was wondering, okay,
Yeah.
that one we know well. Does the DOI cross-squad collaboration take place? I'm sure as a
Yes.
leader, you try to make sure it does, but there's no
Yes.
silo stuff going on, like in other agencies that I won't mention.
We definitely do that, and that actually is something that we've focused on. We have a variety of ways that we now try to bring all of our inspectors general together on a regular basis to share information about the work that they're doing. And I mentioned some of the, processes we put in place to ensure greater oversight. As everyone has, a sense of all of the cases that are worked on, it's much easier for someone to say, wait a minute, that sounds like a familiar name, you should speak to that person, I think they're working on that. So we really encourage that. There are other inquiries that, for various reasons from the start, we can tell involve multiple agencies, and we will have the multiple squads collaborating on those.
So you have the policy and procedure recommendation portal, and I guess that's how the public knows what's going on. How often is it updated, and how do you make sure that the public does get what they need in terms of information?
So that is updated, I believe, every quarter. So when we make a recommendation, it will go up on the portal sort of at the end of that quarter, I believe. And then we have regular check-ins with our IGs and the agencies who have outstanding policy and procedure recommendations to determine the status. Are they implemented, partially implemented, accepted, but not yet implemented? And then we update our portal on a regular basis with that information.
And most agencies, when they're told to do something, they do it?
We have a percentage implementation rate, and it depends a little bit on how you count it, because there are these different stages of, there's accepted, partially implemented, and implemented. But our rate of acceptance and implementation, I believe, is in the low to mid 80s. So that's a pretty good rate, depending on how you look at it. We could always be higher, but
Could be better.
yes. And I do think our, having a good working relationship with the agencies and trying to understand what's feasible from their perspective is an important way to sort of drive that rate even higher.
Okay. And then just to go back on this head count, which is endless, I understand, just to be specific, picking up on what you stated in your testimony as to vacancies, PEG, hiring, what you're hoping to achieve, so that we know specifically what we're asking for.
So the request that, our plan involves 20 additional staff for our confidential investigative squads.
Yep.
And to be allocated in various ways, including with a special focus on the squad that handles the big capital projects.
Yep. That's for the jails, or what else? Yep.
It also involves a number of additional administrative, I would call them administrative staff,
Yep.
for data entry clerks, because we deal with a lot of data, and to be able to take the burden off our investigators of processing and inputting all that data would be a big time saver for them. And then 5 new administrative staff members dedicated to receiving and documenting complaints, a similar, for a similar reason, to again free up investigator time so that they can focus on the analytical
It was
investigative work.
1.7 or 1 point something, I remember.
I believe that was a total of 1.7.
Right, I remember, it's pretty much embezzled in my brain.
Yeah, it's an additional 30 baseline head count when you add the various different components.
Okay. Something else to ask, oh yeah. Has OMB declined any requests to hire, and if so, how many, and what was the reasoning?
They have not, that I'm not aware of any declinations to hire, and like I said, we,
We don't trust OMB, that's why we ask you.
well, I am not aware of any situations where they have declined to hire. Obviously, we have had a dialogue about our needs. That's different from the question that you're asking, and we look forward to continuing that dialogue with them, including with respect to the proposals that we've discussed with you today.
Okay, I know you're talking about, my next life, I want to be a data analyst. I think they're so exciting. I am totally GIS fanatic. So I know you mentioned them as one of the, to be filled. So you're doing the recruiting, and hopefully you'll have the money and the people.
Yes, and just to be clear, we actually have right now a well-staffed data analytics unit. These positions relate to people to handle data entry to support their work.
Okay. One just issue, just in terms of training, I know you talked about it, and it's incredibly important. Obviously, if people were trained and paid attention, then they might not do any fraudulent things. So how do you do it in person? Do you do it online? What's your methodology? Having been in city government for years, I am a big believer in, in person, because I think people cheat. I cheat. When I have to do something online, I cheat. So I was wondering how you go about it. I'm really good at cheating online.
I'll note that for future reference, Chair Brewer.
I do cheat. I mean, sexual harassment, I can just lie all the way through. Go ahead.
We do it in all the ways. We have online modules that basically are disseminated, sort of pushed out to the agencies where people can do them at their desks. We also have training programs that involve live in the sense of an actual DOI investigator, inspector general, instructor, but those programs can be offered virtually so that folks can participate. And then we also, and hope to do even more of this, are doing continuing to do in-person lectures as well. And this is one area where our numbers really are way up in terms of the number of people that we reached in the last year, and that's in part due to return to work and probably people, then refreshing all of these sorts of requirements for trainings and engaging in them. But it's a very important mechanism for us, not only because we want people to report information to us, but it's also, I think, a way to show folks that we are here to listen, not just to teach them what they should report, but also to sort of give a face to our agency so they have someone from a training that they remember hearing from, speaking to, that they can call personally if they want to raise an issue.
I think there is a lot of interest, as you can imagine, on the OIG of NYPD. And the issue there in general, who reviews the draft reports prepared by that office before they're released to the public? Is that you? Are there others? And I know that you're trying to work on the gang report and finding somebody to head up that office, but those are two big challenges that have to be addressed. Go ahead.
Well, in terms of
The reports.
who reviews reports, the practice is not unique to that squad. The reports are all, reviewed in depth, extensively by members of the executive team, including myself. I'm personally involved in that process. And then the agency, to which the report pertains, no matter what that agency is, receives a draft copy of the report so that we can make sure there aren't factual errors that we're making. We will always want to be responsive to claims that we've gotten the facts wrong and to correct them before we issue. And also, if there is a reaction to our recommendations, we may not necessarily change the recommendation, but it's important for us to know if an agency thinks that's simply not possible for us to do financially. Again, it may not change the recommendation, because maybe in the future it'll be possible financially, but it's something we want to know. Maybe it's not feasible for some other reason. Maybe it has a negative impact that we hadn't thought of. So for all these reasons, we think it's in our interest to have the agency to which the report pertains take a look at it before it's publicly issued. So that's our process for all of our reports. The process is the same for theirs.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Chair Brewer. Thank you for the members of the committee for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We'll now be turning to public testimony. Our first panel will be two in-person panelists. Please come up to the table when I call your name. Ivy Dyson and Judy Green.
Go ahead whenever you're ready to start. We love the Brennan Center.
Okay, hi. Good afternoon, Chair Brewer and members of the Committee on Oversight and Investigations. My name is Ivy Dyson, and I'm counsel in the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice. The Brennan Center is a nonpartisan law and policy institute that seeks to improve our systems of democracy and justice. As a part of our focus on government oversight and accountability, we advocated for the creation of an Inspector General for the NYPD in 2013. The Inspector General, which sits under the Department of Investigation, was created to provide a systematic review of NYPD policies and practices via thorough investigations and reporting. Despite producing valuable reports in its early years, the office's output has fallen off significantly, and it appears that it is not being given sufficient attention and priority. I will now highlight a few issues that the Inspector General's office is facing. First, the Inspector General position has been left vacant since late 2021 when Philip Ure left the post, with Janine Barrett currently holding the role of acting IG, and the current job posting requires only 4 years of postgraduate experience. Additionally, the office's staff has fallen by more than half, from 38 employees in 2017 to 17 today. Additionally, the IG has faced challenges in accessing in NYPD records. The NYPD has frequently restricted the IG's access to records and interfered with witness interviews. Finally, the number and quality of IG reports has significantly declined, likely as a result of low staffing and support. From 2015 to 2019, the IG published 16 substantive reports, but since 2020, the office has only published 2. There's no doubt that the NYPD's policing practices, which often harm communities of color, still require robust and timely oversight. The City Council must ensure that the IG can effectively oversee the NYPD. To start, the City Council should call a special hearing with the DOI Commissioner and the IG to seek more information about these challenges. And second, the City Council should consider amendments to the IG statute that would, 1, ensure that any vacancy in the Inspector General position is timely replaced, 2, provide more transparency on the IG's operational issues, and 3, bolster the IG's authority to access information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair Brewer, to come before you again. I was here last April to talk on behalf of the Grassroots Advocates for Neighborhood Groups and Solutions, better known as the New York City Gangs Coalition. This is a broad coalition made up of lawyers, community activists, academics, Legal Aid Society, Brooklyn Defenders, the Immigrant Defense Project, Latino Justice, etc. I have copies of, I'll give you more detail. In May 16th, 2017, we sent a letter to Phil Ure asking for, expressing our concerns about large-scale military-style gang raids and asking for a review of the operations in NYPD in that regard, but specifically expressing particular concern about the gang database, the so-called criminal group database. The importance of that work cannot be overstated. Just briefly, being labeled a gang member and put on the database can include the consequences of police harassment, increased surveillance, loss of housing, risk of detention and removal for undocumented people, etc. We had meetings with Phil Ure and his staff, and those meetings were cordial. But about a year later, hearing nothing for a while, we got wind that Mark Peters, then the Commissioner of Investigations, had blocked the study. We approached 2 members of the City Council, then members of the City Council, Brad Lander and Jimani Williams, wrote a letter to Commissioner Ure and to the Department of Investigations Commissioner. The study proceeded, but again, we heard nothing for a considerable period of time. If you give me just a minute, I want to tell you in sequence the ensuing developments. In December 6, 2015, 16 members of the state legislature wrote a letter urging that the report be released. In April 11, 2022, I appeared before this committee and the Public Safety Committee to talk about the history at that point. We asserted that a fully functioning OIG NYPD was needed, but not only by the community, but by your committee. In September 20th, 2022, a letter was sent to Acting Commissioner Barrett, signed by 30 community organizations. December 18th, 2022, 16 members of the City Council sent a letter. The commissioner mentioned that she had assured you last year during the April hearing that the report would be available by the end of the year. For the second time we come before you, it's been 6 years to express our dismay, and our anger over this letter. Essentially, 4 letters from public officials and advocacy groups, a joint committee hearing of this committee with public safety, and the assurance last year of the DOI commissioner has served only apparently to keep the study alive. We were told the beginning of last year that the work was completed and that the study was in final review, only awaiting the appointment of a new commissioner for release. There are more details available in my testimony, and again, I just thank you for the opportunity. I think this constitutes a case study of the problems in that particular and very important part of the DOI.
And I appreciate that. I think you heard her say 3 months. I don't know that that's the exact time, but I'm pretty much like a dog with a bone. And so I will definitely stay on top of it. I promise you. I will stay on top of it. I hear you. Long, 6 years too long. Thank you very, very much, both of you. Any questions, anybody? Oh, Councilmember Joseph.
Yeah, hi, how are you? Would you be able to submit that testimony
Yes,
with your
I will.
suggestions to
Yes.
us? We would like to see a copy of that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you.
We'll now turn to Zoom panelists. Our first panelist is Lyric Thompson. Lyric Thompson, you may begin upon the sergeant's announcement.
Voting time.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, for holding this hearing. My experience with DOI has not been a pleasant one. I am at 1355 Decatur in Brooklyn, and I went to DOI in 2015 due to forged documents that I found within our 421A application, as well as the fact that our 421A building was not finished. DOI, Jessica Hegan, allowed Decatur Assets to remove the forged document, the forged FCE, and told us nothing to find. I continue to make complaints to DOI regarding our building not being finished, regarding the forgeries that weren't just the forged FCE. The architectural papers were forged. The public accountant's papers were forged. The leases submitted to HPD by Alan Paknush when contacted by TPU, those were forged. The Tenant Protection Unit knows this. DOI knows this. The only one who didn't know this was the new owner, who lost his 421A exemption when he tried to use these forged documents. To say that I'm disappointed with DOI, we're still going through and dealing with the consequences of our building not being finished. One of those issues is our doors. Our doors have never been code compliant, as our building has never been properly signed off by DOB. So 8 years roundabout with HPD writing and removing violations on doors for the first 4.5 years never should have been on the building. So when those 17 people died in the Bronx in the Twin Parks fire, I was so distraught by this, I called DOI and I spoke to Commissioner Zarilla. And I explained to him that we were having issues with HPD, that they didn't know the standards for doors. In fact, they don't even take the training class for doors. So how are you supposed to enforce a standard and a code that you don't know? And my intention with this complaint was for them to look into this. The evidence is superfluous, and for them to recommend HPD train their employees in the codes for doors before anybody else dies of smoke inhalation while fleeing for their lives. Unfortunately, Zarilla decided to go with the Cliff Notes rather than taking an actual class, and came out and said our doors were fine, even though they had gaps around them. There was clearance issues. The landlord was using a door sweep. The fire department got involved. They came out and wrote violations. And now I'm stuck in this little triangle fight with HPD, who says our doors are now political and refuses to write any violations, even though the door is not secure, it doesn't latch, and anybody could walk into our building. It has non-fire labeled door hardware tacked to it, along with bathroom caulking. I have DOI saying, go back to HPD, and HPD saying to go back to DOI. Now, none of this is my job.
Yeah, you know what, let me say, I will follow up, because I'm pretty good at untangling these sorts of things, and I promise.
Well, I have the receipts, Gail. I'd love to sit down with you and go over all these forged documents, and we can find out why DOI turned a blind eye.
I would be glad to do that. Okay, we will follow up offline. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't see anyone else who's registered on the Zoom. If you're waiting to testify in the Zoom and we haven't called on you, please use the Zoom raise hand function. Just to run through our registered witnesses, it was Juan Calcutta, Alex Stein, Will Gallison, and Lloyd Fang. I don't see any of those individuals on the Zoom or any further hands raised. So Chair Brewer, I'll turn it back to you to close this out.
Thank you very much to my colleagues and to the staff and to DOI. And I think what I come away with is they need the funding to do the job, and they need to follow up on the IG at NYPD. And I will follow up on the woman from 1355 Decatur. Thank you very much. This hearing is adjourned.